Welcome to the MPG Podcast, where your host, John Grabio, talks racing, driving, training, and cars with Newman Watts racing driver, JordanMissig. And now, here's John and Jordan.
Well, welcome to the MPG Podcast. Your host here, John Graybill, along with Newman Watts driver, JordanMissig. Jordan, how are you today?
I'm doing very good, John. It's a gloomy day out where we are today. Not much sun we're going to see today. It's going to be all cloud cover and might probably some rain here later. But I'm doing all right myself. I'm hanging in there.
April 5th, Sunday morning, April 5th. Sun's out down here, so I'm about 2 hours, hour and a half, 2 hours south of you. Sun's out here. I'm trying to get our hot tub up and running. Had to repair a few parts and trying to make the family happy before I have to leave town and venture out and fly around the countryside. This week, well, let's get a few updates. You had a race Tuesday night.
Last Tuesday, yes.
Tuesday night. We'll talk about that in a second. Is there any update, any news, or anything happening as far as I don't want to say real racing, but how do we say that? Updates as far as
racing on the real tracks. We can call.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Non-simulated racing. How about that?
Not the virtual world racing, the real life stuff. Yes. Not too much to report back on as far as updates wise. I know there is maybe a little bit of talk of. Now, I don't know if that's rumors or anything, but there's just a little bit of talk of maybe the second race of the season, which would be at Circuit of the Americas in June, could potentially be in jeopardy of being postponed or canceled. I think it's going to be postponed, if anything. But, I mean, they're in talks of it now since the virus now has moved into the month of April. And we're slowly, we have no idea when this thing is going to end. And this race is in June, so it's still 2 months away, but you still need to get all the preparation and planning through. So who knows when this race will get, if we do run it at the scheduled time or if it is going to get pushed back. But that's the only thing I can update on as of now.
Okay. And once again, the best way to update for you is, we'll get Facebook.
We got Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at JordanMissig Racing, and you can also go to my website at JordanMissigRacing.com or look up on YouTube under JordanMissig. I also do post videos and content out of that too as well.
Okay, wow, yeah. So there's a lot of ways to stay updated. So on Tuesday was the second F3Americas race.
Yes, virtual F3 Americas race was at Circuit of the Americas on Tuesday.
Circuit of the Americas on Tuesday. So how did that Circuit of Americas down in Austin? The F1 guys run there in October-ish.
Mm-hmm.
It's super nice when you fly over it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. If
you're landing to the north in Austin, you got to sit in the co-pilot seat to see everything that's cool that's going on down there. You're too busy so the captain sits on the left side, and when you're taking off south, you're too busy when you're taking off to even look over there. So I miss it unless I'm sitting in the co-pilot seat. Then I catch a 1 or 2 second glimpse of the track, and it's pretty cool from the air because it's red and white, and it's very colorful. Let's say. Oh yeah, it's one of the more colorful tracks that you'll see in the U.S. circuits. And how long a track is that?
I want to say it's like 3.2, I think, or 3.1. It's something along the lines of that because it's a pretty long track. It's got 2 long straightaways, obviously, as we know, and then we have the S's that we go through, which are the first, 3 to 8 corners that you go to on the track. So, I mean, that track itself, it's very flowy, very rhythmic, I think you could say. You need to be able to be it's very meticulous, and you need to be precise when you're making any marks or hitting any marks or anything like that. Because in the Sims, you really can't corner cut as much, and especially if you try to, there's curbs there on the inside, and they're like turtle curbs. So in the F3 cars, if you hit those, they're literally going to launch your car into the air or break your wing. So you need to be very mindful of the curbs.
And you have experience, of course, down there. Podcast listeners here will know last year that was the last race of the Radical Cup Series. Was down. He had an incredible race down there. So you have raced. So you've raced with a non-virtual car, real car, whatever we're going to say, down there for real. And so this, how do you compare the virtual driving track? The system you're using is iRacing. That's the very popular one. How do you compare the virtual track to the real world track, I guess, for lack of a better word?
Well, obviously, the feel factor that comes with iRacing, you're not going to feel. So the elevation changes, you're not going to feel the brake pressure that you put down. You don't feel. All you can feel is just through the pedals. You can't feel it throughout your whole body. You can't feel the car itself. So, I mean, you're already down a disadvantage from there. As far as the track is, though, I feel like there's a little bit more grip through the sim. There can be for the tires to bite. But, it's not as mindful as it is when real life. I mean, you can corner cut a little bit, go 2 wheels off, whereas in the sim, if you go 2 wheels off, it's going to catch you and it's going to say that you're doing track limits. So it's very, very hard, and it's very you got to almost tone it back a little bit on the sim compared to what you do in real life. Now, you can still put down lap times that are going to be, just very close and similar to what you're on the real track. But when you're looking at it from, a kind of learning the track situation, that's where it's very useful.
Yeah, I can totally see that. It's my my few ventures into tracks. So what's the qualifying? So you're practicing quite a bit, or do you know the track pretty good and the car pretty good right now?
We're practicing throughout the week. I mean, some of us FR guys will host a session here and there, and then they'll host a session, we'll join it, other people will join it, we'll just kind of burn up lap times for about 2 to 3 hours worth. But then once we get into, we're practicing for probably close to 10 hours per week, if not 15 maybe. But then once we get into the actual session, we're only given 10 minutes of practice and then 10 minutes of qualifying to fill in for the broadcast, which is the hour time slot that we're given.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. So the race can be watched at all the before mentioned locations. You have a link to that, or you can go to YouTube for F3Americas, their YouTube channel, and you can watch that. So qualifying
didn't go quite as well.
Didn't go quite as well, did it? No. So
what happened was, because of COTA and the Circuit of the Americas track limits on the sim, we try to push in as hard as we can. And it's when you get to this turn 7 and 8 complex, which is it's like a long right-hander and turns into a quick left-hander. It's very transitional, so it's hard to get the weight distribution over to get the car to set perfectly and keep the momentum up. So if you try to push too hard, you're going to end up pushing out wide further, and it's very hard to try to keep the car underneath you to keep it on the track itself. So, I mean, most of the guys in qualifying were finding themselves going over track limits just by the slightest of bits. I mean, you're pushing millimeters over track limits, and it's catching you. So, qualifying didn't go as planned as us. We had to avoid some other traffic as well as issues of our own. I did have one good lap in, but it was compromised by track limits towards the end of the lap. So I didn't get to really put in a good time. So we had to kind of start towards the back.
Yeah. How difficult is it weaving in a virtual world, weaving through cars? Is it more difficult or?
Yeah, because it's more difficult because, everybody's break points are different, whereas in the real world, almost everyone's break points are very similar.
Oh,
so, some people are braking later, some people are braking earlier, and it's very hard to tell when everyone's going to be hitting the brakes because in the real world, everyone's break points are very similar. So you can kind of run nose to tail around someone very easily, whereas someone can hit the brakes earlier, and then you got to revert out of the way or dodge from running into the back of them.
Interesting. So the race starts, and then you start making a move, right?
Yeah, so we're starting 25th, and my objective was to try to get up to turn. I knew there was going to be a mess up at turn 1, so it was to try to kind of avoid the mess, the melee you can call it. So it all went really well. There were some guys that were 4 wide. I tried to get to the inside because I was starting on the inside, starting 25th. So I tried to get to the inside and see if everybody was going to wreck and try to kind of move over to the top side. Well, I started on the inside, and then I saw there was a wreck on the inside, so I started to move up and up and up, and I find myself, oh wait, I'm going over the exit curb and off track here because everyone's blocking the track. So, I just kind of tried to do as best as I can. I had a couple incidents of my own. Some guys, I kind of accidentally, we kind of made contact with each other. Some of the exit curbs weren't too friendly to me, so I had a little bit of incident in my own, but I ended up managing to weave through most of the traffic. Most of the guys ended up hitting the curbs and through the S's, and it would pop their cars up or spin them out, and next thing you know, they'd be in the wall, and they'd have to use a reset or get towed back. So, the main of the game was just to kind of stay out of trouble and just kind of play it safe and be patient. And, everybody will make mistakes, and they'll start coming back to you.
Okay. So the race itself is about 30 minutes?
30 minutes long, yeah. So roughly around Circuit of the Americas, it's around 15 to 16 laps.
Do you find it's harder? It seems to me when you're driving, it seems to me, not that you can not focus 110% when you're driving, but for me, virtually, when you can take your eyes off of something when you're driving, not very long, but you can, acknowledge it when you turn your head to glance when you're entering and exiting a turn. What I find driving a virtual car is I feel that I can relax more, but you can't.
No, I mean,
every time that I'm driving, a lap on the simulator, and I just, for a second, just to glance down at the dash to see some or look up at my time, nothing good comes of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's so many more overlays and like graphics to look at on the sim. It's very easy to kind of get distracted and look at what else is going on the sim. I also feel like, in the real car, there's so much going on around you, and, you're feeling like you're in the moment. You almost need to focus because that's what you're doing. Whereas in the sim, you don't get that sense of speed or the sense of urgency, and you feel like, oh, yeah, you're right. I am more relaxed. I can take the time to look around and see what's going on, and the next thing you know, when you lose that focus, nothing good comes after that. That's why when you're driving a car, you always want to be 100%, 110% focused on what you're doing. And that's why I feel like, it is easier to drive maybe in real life than it is on the sim. It is harder to drive on the sim because, that focus level and concentration level needs to be there. But because you're relaxed, it's just not. You don't feel like it's all seriousness. You don't feel like you're in the moment and you need to be 100% concentrated on what's going on in front of you.
Yeah, it's interesting. We'll say that it's sure interesting.
You need to experience it to understand it. It's like one of those, you need to be able to do it.
Yeah, and I would imagine, not that I'm not in the business of selling simulator equipment, but I would imagine that particularly right now, it's going strong. I would imagine that lots of people are getting that. There's millions of resources on how to, if one of the listeners was, want to engage in that or go down that path, there's a million resources available and a million options, which is overwhelming to me. A million options. We were thinking about upgrading our sim, and my gosh, there's so many options. You just don't know which direction to go, or maybe just stay with what you have. I mean, it's difficult. It's difficult, as you know, because you made some adjustments, right? You made some different equipment changes.
Yep.
So, I mean, we could talk about that. Maybe at some point exactly what kind of equipment you're using and your thoughts on that. Maybe that's a future podcast that we can detail if the listeners are so interested in that. Back to the race. So you start moving up, and you eventually move up from 25th to
P10. I finished the race in 10th position, gained 15 spots. I was given the Save Out Hard Charger Award at the end of the race for moving up the most positions in the race, and that moves me up to 25 positions advanced throughout the 2 races that we've taken place. So I currently lead the advanced positions marker in that, whereas the next place guy behind me has 18 positions advanced and then 17 behind him, I think. So there's an award for winning the Hard Charger Award that comes with that. I think Seatbelt does a discount. It's kind of a clothing brand is Seatbelt or Seatbelt. they do some fire suits and everything. So they do all the fire suits, some clothing and everything like that. But the winner would get a discount for like their next fire suit purchase order or something like that.
Okay, all right. And the who won the race? How did the guys that won last week? Or the podium guys last week? Did they podium this week too? Or
so AJ Allmendinger, he's a NASCAR Xfinity Series driver as well as an IMSA driver. He was in the race. He finished fourth, but he finished on the third last race. I think it was Flynn Lazier, who is also known as the son of former IndyCar driver Buddy Lazier, I believe. He was in the race, but he finished, I think, 7th or 8th. And then Benjamin Waddell, he's a former Formula 4 champion, races, I think, in SCCA and IMSA. He ended up crashing out in the middle of the S's in turns 3 and 4. So he ended up hitting one of the curbs, went into the wall, and helped me advance to my position up to 10th. So thanks, Benjamin, for the assist on that. But yeah, he won the first race, so he ended up finishing in the back, obviously. So, but those guys do not get counted for points because they're guest drivers. So they don't get counted for points. It's all between the Formula Regional guys are the guys who get counted for points. So you had Dario Cantalousi, I believe is his last name, if it's said right. He ended up winning the race. He got pole, ended up winning, going from lights out to checkered flag. He ended up winning. Second place was Dakota Dickerson, who is the reigning F3 champion. And then third place was Jacob Abel, who races for Abel Racing. He races both in the Road to Indy series with the Indy Pro 2000, and now he moved over to Formula Regionals.
Okay. All right.
So we're in some pretty competitive people here.
Wow. Cool. Very cool. All right. So so this week, Tuesday again, another race?
Tuesday again, another race, and we are going to Virginia International Raceway, VIR, for this next race. Okay. Currently sitting 6th in the point standings right now. I did drop a spot in the points, but we're looking to make a good result this weekend to maybe gain a spot or two back.
Okay. All right. So we'll tune in for that Tuesday night. And anything else going on this week?
Nothing too much. Going to be practicing for the next couple days. I know for some local people here in the Joliet area, Audubon series is going to be starting up as well. Audubon is creating a e-racing series on iRacing. So I'm going to be excited for that. That's going to be racing on Monday nights as well. So I have a racing now on Monday and Tuesday nights for iRacing.
All right. Outstanding. Okay. Well, we'll check up on that and how Monday and Tuesday goes next week. Sounds great, Jordan. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, John.